Hi guys, Sarah here from Highland Haven Australian Shepherds and Highland Haven Dog Training, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 8 of Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter, and dog trainer extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hi everyone.
So we were just yakking before we started recording. Give us an update. You can give us an update on Gus. We have some good news about him.
Yeah, so we might have found a home for Gus. It's an older gentleman, and he has border collie experience. He has a 15-year-old border collie right now, and then he has two
Bearded collies.
Bearded collies that are, middle-aged life. So one of them is super into playing. So we're hoping that Gus will be super playful with the one that's super playful. He has a barn, right?
Yeah, well, he lives a couple towns over, so not far, about a half an hour away, which is great. His family owns a farm, which he does not. He lives in his own house with an acre, but he has access to, big open fields on the family farm, which is just down the road from him. So he said that's where he takes them to do chuck it because he can really throw it far. So he fell in love with Gus immediately. Gus immediately liked him. Of course, Gus likes everyone, so.
He's lovely.
And he's totally a lovable dog. So, yeah, I think he's going to go to this person's house and do a home visit. We'll take him and make sure that he gets along with the dogs that are there, at least initially. And then he'll, provided that goes well, he'll keep him for a week as a test. And then if he wants to adopt him at the end of that week, we'll do the paperwork and Gus will be in his new forever home.
Yep.
So not surprising that it was a matter of days because Gus is, he's a gem.
He is a gem.
I just kept saying this to that guy. I was like, no, he's exceptional and he's just a gem. He's just a good dog with a good heart. And, he's lovable on top of that. Yep. So I'm really excited for him. I think this is going to be really nice for him. Although I will miss him because he's my snuggle buddy at night. Yeah,
but right now we have two new training dogs that came in, and I feel bad because they need a lot of work, which requires, a lot of patience and we have to discipline them when they're doing
a lot of verbal
things.
interrupters are going on, and poor Gus is like, what
so
did I
upset,
do wrong?
And we're like, you didn't do anything wrong, buddy. I'm not talking to you.
Poor Gus. Yeah, so it's been a little bit stressful in the last 2 days for him.
I feel bad. So he's definitely ready to go. And especially with Thanksgiving and stuff coming up, I would prefer him not to be, with all the chaos because he's just such a sweet guy.
Yeah, I would like to get him out of here before he has to deal with a dog he doesn't get along with.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want anything traumatic to happen. Not that it would, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I don't want him to have any bad experiences here.
Yeah.
I want to completely avoid that for him because he's just done so well. So he's probably going to be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, Friday.
Friday? Okay.
So that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And like you say, we have two new training dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about them?
We have Copper, which is a Bernedoodle. And then we have Dublin. I always want to call her Dublin. Dublin.
Dublin. I don't know why you make such a big deal about this.
I don't know. And she is a retriever puppy. She's 9 months old.
She's 9 months old. Yeah. Super cute.
Yeah, super cute.
Yep. So Copper, I think he's a golden mountain doodle or something. He is, I think, like around 2.5. Mm-hmm. He's full grown. He's had some resource guarding issues, some redirection kind of stuff. And the golden is just all over the place.
Yeah. She's like an 8-week-old puppy in a 9-month-old dog's body.
Yeah, she's very emotionally young.
Mm-hmm.
And
all id.
She's just exploding everywhere.
She has like, I on one hand, when we're working with dogs that are just pure id, it's the first week is always just so unpleasant for all parties. It's unpleasant for her. It's unpleasant for us because we have to be so hard on them. But once you get through and you shake all the cobwebs out of their brain and they start using their brain instead of just existing, and thinking about consequences and understanding what you get if you listen. And, they understand both sides of all we want you to do is not to jump on us. That's it. They're like,
that's
I
all we're
won't do that.
asking. This is her second full day. She came in the evening on the day she arrived. So with a dog like her, like you say, it's just like we have very low expectations at this point. Our only goal is for her not to jump on us. Yep. That's it.
Yep.
And she's having a tough time because that's how she has learned to regulate her emotions, right? Is to jump on you and even like jump and scratch and get in your face and go
and grab your clothing and pull your clothing down.
Goodness.
And yeah, she's all over the place. But with a dog like this, once you unwind their minds, it's like they completely change. It's like a completely different dog by the end of this, because it's like she starts thinking and putting two and two together and understanding like, oh, I can do this. This isn't hard. Yeah, no, it's not. Just don't act foolish.
Yeah, so I mean, your comparison to an 8-week-old puppy is a good one, I think, because when we're talking about our 8-week, 6 or 7 or 8-week-old puppies, we teach them manding behaviors. So we teach them a behavior which is come and sit in front of me if you want me to give you attention, right? So I'm not asking them to sit, right? That's why it's a manding behavior and not a command. They have realized that their behavior, they can do a behavior to get what they want from me, which is attention, right? So it wires their brain really, really young. Dublin has no concept that her behavior correlates with how the world interacts with her. Like, she literally has no concept that she can control anything in her world.
And on top of that, kind of going back to what you were saying, the reason I think of her as an 8-week-old puppy is because when we sell our puppies, that's usually the only command they have is the manding behavior. And that's literally the only command she has is manding. So she'll come and she'll sit on you. But instead of it just being a manding behavior, she comes and sits and then essentially redirects all of her anxiety on you, jumping on you, grabbing you, and then you tell her to get off and you're all upset because she just literally assaulted you.
Right.
And then she sits perfectly and you're like, so it's actually the manding behavior that it started out to be has turned into a chaining behavior, which is like, I get to throw all my shit at you, and then I sit and then you reward me for it, and then I get to do it again and I get to sit and get reward. So she doesn't understand.
I disagree that it's manding. It's not manding. Her owner did work on sit.
Well, I think it's like it started out as
I think the owner created. I think the owner taught her to sit, right? She I'm sure went online or listened to advice from somebody, right? Teach your dog to sit so they won't jump on you. So she tells her to sit and she sits. But in my experience, what happens in the very, very beginning, so not so much today because we've already made some progress, right? What she does is she's nervous. She's in a strange environment. So already she's all dysregulated, right? So she's even more apt to do that hysterical jumping stuff. So what I experienced when she first came in was she jumps all over you first, and then you tell her to get off, and then she goes, oh, right, and then sits. Like, she knows, she's thinking to herself, I know, now I sit, I got to basically vomit all of my emotions all over you just now. Now I'm going to sit. And then the mom does something very typical that almost all owners do, which is as soon as she sits, she rewards her with petting, rewards her with her voice, and then the dog jumps up and explodes again, right? Now, this might not be exactly what she sees at home because she's much more comfortable in her home environment, but I guarantee you this is the behavior she's seeing whenever anything is making this dog nervous. And she's a 9-month-old female golden retriever. She has zero confidence, which is very typical for Goldens in particular. I find that, part of the charm of golden retrievers is that they're so submissive and biddable. And I think that has been accentuated through the breeding process because we want a super sweet golden retriever. We don't want a golden retriever who pushes back like an Aussie. Yeah. That's not what people get Goldens for, right? So I think that the breeding of this particular breed has accentuated this softness, which presents as lack of confidence to the trained eye, right? That's not so much softness as zero confidence. And so you get to a 9-month-old, basically full grown, she's not totally filled out, but she's probably pretty close to her adult height, dog with zero confidence and tons of energy, and has figured out, how do I make myself feel better? I know I vomit all over my owner by jumping all over them and scratching them and being a maniac. And then she tells me to do something and I do it for 2 seconds and then I do the behavior. So yes, I think that it's a chaining behavior, and it comes from a good place. It comes from a sort of a partial understanding of what you do in those situations. Of course, the other half of that understanding is lost.
Well, and it is interesting because when I was watching the entire interaction of her like coming into our facility, I was like, oh, she has impulse control. She just doesn't know she has impulse control. Because the fact that you can go from like a 10 of redirecting all your emotions and then go to a sit, like a very perfect sit, that's impulse control right there. You just went from a 10 to a 2.
The very, very beginning, right?
Yeah,
the very edge.
And
right.
It's, to me, I see that and I'm like, oh, that's like what you would see in like an 8 or 9-week puppy. You know, like I think that's more or less where I'm kind of coming from, is like a lot of her behaviors are it's just very young for, and we're also used to Aussies too, which are much more intelligent at a younger age.
Right. So Aussies weren't bred for that kind of softness, right? So you're not going to see generally that kind of lack of like this dog is afraid of other dogs. She's very, very submissive with new people. Again, that's part of when it's molded properly, and we're going to do that for her. That's part of the charm of Goldens, right? They love everyone. Yeah. And these owners, I think, have done the best. You know, they're not irresponsible. They I'm sure, have worked very hard with her, and you can see there is some understanding of at least the commands. They're just like all of our owners are just out of their depth. Like, okay, now what?
Yeah, no, she's
it's
a
not
lot.
working the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah,
I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah,
and
no,
that's why she's with us.
And she's also like a lot. Like it's a lot. Like
she has very big emotions.
Yeah, she really does. She's a lot going on in that head for not having a lot going on in that head.
As annoying as the first few days with a dog like this is for us, I was saying to you that like you have to be. I have to be so big in my responses to her, otherwise she doesn't register them.
Well, and it's even like, I don't know if you've noticed, I know we've interacted with them separately, but even her dog-to-dog skills, the dogs are so much like, okay, stop. I'm ignored. Stop. I'm like, you are going to get a nasty correction. Like, you need to chill. Like, they're not interested in playing with you.
She was absolutely terrified of them. Like, come near her and she'd pee. So she's zero confidence with her dogs. And then by the end of the day, the third shift yesterday, she did some rudimentary playing, which was great. I want to see that. And so the natural progression of that is, right, now I get confidence in playing. Now I'm going to play totally inappropriately because I don't have, I have a little bit more confidence, but I have no understanding of what the rules of this game are.
Yeah. And there's not even a game.
To them it is though, right?
To her, she thinks that it's a game of, I think she was trying to figure out how to do the game of chase, but I was playing fetch with Cooper and Gus separately. Copper and Gus separately, and she would run after them and then like muzzle punch them in the back of the neck, and then they would turn around and be like, stop, and she'd be like, oh, play bow on the other side, let me jump over you, let me go on my back, let me do, like, I'm like, girl.
Yeah, so it's this, again, vomiting of emotion, right?
Yeah, let me try to figure out how I get you to play with me. 17
different behaviors, maybe one of which is appropriate and the other 16 are completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And, you know, she just her mind is racing ahead of everything. So as annoying as it is to work for the first few days of working with a dog like this, because it's like I say, my communication with her has to be so accentuated. And I don't like being like that. I like being very quiet with dogs. But with a dog like this, if you're quiet, she literally has no idea that you're even speaking to her, right? So you have to be very demonstrative in your indications, particularly your verbal interrupters, right? I don't feel good about my training because I don't like to I almost feel hysterical, even though in the situation it needs it.
Well, you got to match her
Once,
energy, and her
right.
energy is hysterical. So therefore, I have to match my energy with being
So
calm.
she even realizes that you're
And
even
yeah,
focusing on her.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so once she figures out that her, what I'm asking is very simple, and all she has to do is that simple thing, her training is going to go from like a 2 to like a 10 overnight. Like she's
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, she literally just has no idea
Mm-mm.
that we're trying to communicate with her. No idea. She just
No.
figures there's no, like, it doesn't even occur to her, which is why I love when we work with our little puppies, because we're able to set their brains up so young to understand that, yes, we can communicate back and forth. This is not, you don't have to speak a foreign language.
I every time you say that, I think of a dog's purpose, and every single like the first time, if you guys have read the book, or they do have a movie, but the movie doesn't really touch upon this. In the book, like the first chapter is he's being born, and his first interactions of being alive, and um he describes having to push his litter mates apart to go to the milk bar. He describes learning how to walk. He describes interacting with his playmates and the step by step social skills that the dogs
Very young
have,
puppies have, sure.
puppies have. And then it starts to go when I think he's a stray at first, and then his first interactions with these alien creatures, he calls them humans, and how he communicates with them. And then I think, not to spoil the book, but then he ends up getting reborn again, and then
Right. Well,
his
him and
communication.
his mother and all littermates are immediately euthanized.
Yeah, because it's like he's a street dog,
Yeah, it's a street dog. So.
and then he gets reborn again, and this time he was with a young boy, and he's raised by this young boy, and they talk about the communication, but like obviously he can't speak English, so all you see is the viewpoint of the dog and how the human is communicating to dog, and him putting two and two together. And so every time you're talking about this, I just think about like what's going on in her head, of just like her
Yeah, like
trying to.
she's got all this sort of static in her head, so she can't process the information coming at her. And so that she feels, I would imagine, of course, this is all supposition, I'm not in her head, but from her behavior, she feels like she's completely out of control. She has no control of anything. So I guess that's really what I'm trying to say. Once she realizes that she does have control of her environment, like consistent control, A plus B equals C every time, she's going to be like, oh my God. Like it's going to be a revelation to her. So, as hard as these dogs are initially to work with, a little bit frustrating, when their brain opens up, they end up making huge progress, and their anxiety comes down, their confidence goes up, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Well, and it's my two favorite parts about working specifically with a dog like this is when the cobwebs open up, right, and we start having a relationship and communication lines are open. And then my second favorite part is bringing that dog to their owner and being like, here's the dog that she should be.
Right.
And then you teaching them how to have that communication with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, like she's a different dog. Right. When in reality she's not a different dog. There was just no line of communication. We just opened the line of communication. We didn't even do we're not very like we're not like a German trainer where we're like, you must do this. It's very much so like, I want to create a relationship with you so we can have a cohesive relationship.
Right. Like here's a few foundational communication pieces, and you can take, say, these 5 things I've taught you and put them in an infinite, well, it's not technically not infinite, but a million different combinations. I try to explain this to prospective clients, right? When I'm trying to sell our services, they're very focused on, what are you teaching them? And will they do that for me? And how well trained are they when they go home, and things like that. And you and I, our philosophy is less about commands and, quote, obedience, and more about communication, like you say, understanding, relationship. So really putting these 5 pieces in place, you just use different combinations of those 5 pieces to do all the communicating you need with this dog.
Yeah, and I mean, this is totally relates, but I had a lesson with Lucy today, which I know in previous podcasts we've had like long talks about Lucy. And she was
You gotta give a brief primer.
Lucy is a pointer and
GSP.
GSP, and she came for training. Very similar behaviors, different background. Lucy essentially lived in a home with a guy who was going to use her for working. I imagine hunting of some kind, and he pretty much just didn't have time for them and left her and her sibling in a crate. And then
So she was fostered out and ended up with Melanie.
With Melanie, yes.
And she's come back for boarding lots, and we do a lot of communicating with Melanie. So you did an extra lesson with her today for some other behaviors to sort of polish off some rough edges. So go ahead.
Pretty much the entire lesson consisted of she has a baseline of understanding, because we know she does. When you take her on a walk, I imagine she sits perfectly when you're putting the leash on, and she goes, yeah, she's perfect. And I imagine she sits perfectly before going out the door. Yeah, she's perfect. And then when you walk, she walks perfectly. Yeah, she's perfect. So it's because she understands A plus B equals C. She does not understand when she comes out of the crate. She thinks that I chill in the crate, she tells me to calm down, then I come out, then I jump all over her, then she tells me no. So she's putting her own variation on A plus B equals
Plus,
C.
you have a huge excitement factor.
Exactly. And anything with Lucy is if you give her an inch, she takes miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. So
that is the definition of a German Shorthair Pointer.
Yes. So and Melanie's very, very on top of it. So she's like, I just don't understand. So I just had to break it down, go back to the basics, and be like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. Plan A is what we're going to do when we have time to train, and plan B is going to be when we don't have time to train. We're just going to throw a leash on her and not ask her anything, right? But plan A is because she's a GSP, and she has other dogs that we've worked on e-collar training and stuff like that. I was like, we're going to implement the e-collar training, and so we're going to give her opportunities to knock it off, have the leash on her, and also have the e-collar on her. So then when she does put her mouth on you, you already gave her 3 warnings before when she did put her mouth on you. Now you're going to correct her with the e-collar. And it seems harsh, but because she comes out on a 10, you need to meet that energy with a 10 as well. If you don't, then no matter what you do, she's still going to do the behavior because she thinks that this is the routine that we're doing. You have to break it down.
Why is she so mad at me? And it's very confusing, which then, the frustration begets more anxious behavior, which, it like builds and builds and builds. It like feeds on itself.
So ironically, people are like, oh, well, just let them be. Let them exist in the world. But actually, that's not what we've bred dogs to do. We've bred dogs to listen to us. We've bred our dogs to have communications with humans, especially in our environment. So it's our jobs to understand where they're coming from and implement step-by-step instructions so that they can succeed in the home environment. And that's just what I did with Lucy today. And she was great. She was wonderful. We had
like you said, that when we talked about this, hunting dogs in particular, e-collars were actually designed for hunting dogs. That's like the genesis of the e-collar, right? Because they're out in the fields and long distances and whatnot. The e-collar is erroneously called a shock collar. It's actually not. They're not getting a shock. They're getting a stim, which is like if you've been to PT and you're putting that electrode on your muscle and your muscle contracts, that's a stim. That's what an e-collar is. And a good e-collar will have 150 levels of intensity, right? And we've never done high intensity. Medium is the most we've ever done with any dog. Most dogs are even lower than that, and some dogs just need a very, very light stim.
With her, I'm working her at a 20, 25.
Out of what?
Out of 100. So it's really, really low. And I told Melanie, I was like, she can work at a lower level if we were doing, like, there's many different variations of e-collar training, like you can use it as a leash correction or like a very low correction. But we only use it as punishment. Like we don't like we want our voice to be more like a leash correction. And if you're not listening to my voice, then I need to proceed with a
Right.
more
So the way
intense
we
correction.
do it is, and the way you explained it to Melanie today is, we're always going to give her the benefit of the doubt. We're going to start with a verbal interrupter.
Yeah.
Enough. Right. And I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she's going to listen to that. Yep. And sometimes she will. Many times she will, depending on her excitement level. And we're only going to then proceed to a stim when she has not listened to that and is continuing to escalate behavior, right?
I mean, the lesson was an hour and a half, hour 15, something like that. I only used it 4 or 5 times, because she listened to my verbal interrupter every single time.
Right.
So like she has the baseline of it. It's for sure. It's more of like it's an extra precaution.
And she's so responsive to it, which is really nice.
It works like in 2 seconds. And Melanie was like, "Oh, that's it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's literally it." Like she doesn't make a noise. It just, she knows that this is what it is and she has to stop doing it. And I've already trained her in the facility. Melanie just needed more of like guidance on,
because it takes skill.
It does.
You know, I don't have a problem with retractable leashes, but it takes some
skill.
Coordination and skill to use them correctly and safely, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same with any tool. We are big believers in prong collars, which make some people uncomfortable when they don't really understand how they're being used. But it does take skill to use them correctly so that it is not abuse, mm-hmm. right? And it's the same with the e-collar. And, you know, Melanie is a very ethical, caring dog owner, and she wants, like anybody who's first using a tool, you want to make sure that you're using it right and you're not harming the dog in any way.
Yep. And she kept saying that, like, I just want to make sure I'm using it right and blah, blah. And I was like, the fact that you are concerned about making sure you're using it right is telling me that I'm not concerned you're going to use it wrong.
Because you're so concerned about it.
Yep.
It's, you know, and I think that the e-collar can absolutely be used as in abuse, right? Even by people who don't mean to, because they don't know what they're doing. And it's the same with a prong collar, even just a chain collar. You know, any tool you put on your dog, you can use to abuse them.
I can list of 1,000 tools that are used.
You can use the crate in an abusive way.
You can use the crate. You can use a head halter in an abusive way. You can use an easy walk in an abusive way. Like, I mean, when we worked at daycare, there are many times that we had dogs come in with rashes across their chest because they're pulling on the easy walk collar.
Easy walk.
And we're like, yeah, like, you need to take him to training so he walks properly. Oh no, it works fine. But yet he has no hair across his body. Right. You know, so like any tool can be used abusively, anything.
Right. So you do want to make sure that a tool that is so easy to apply, like an e-collar, because it's just a button, that you have the right mindset, and the right temperament, and then the right understanding of exactly when to use it, and how to set it so that the dog is responsive and not one setting beyond that.
Well, yeah, and I think the reason we use the e-collar in the way we use it. We are not a program who requires you to have an e-collar for training. There are many trainers out there that the first thing they do is not put a prong collar on, they put an e-collar on, and that's how they train the dog to listen to them. And you shock them or stim them every single time for eye contact. And, it's much more embedded in the program. With us, it's like, what if you don't have it? What if it's not charged? What if
it's
it breaks?
Impractical.
And on top of it, now I'm walking a dog and having a remote in my hand. What if I have to pick up poop? Like, it's so many different skills you have to do.
And a lot of coordination there.
And so Maya has a client that comes in. It's this giant lab who's like all over the place. And every single time this client comes, she has like all the gadgets on this dog. And you can tell like she's really tried, but like she does not have the patience for an e-collar. She doesn't have the patience for this giant lab that's all over the place. And she got taught that every opportunity is a training opportunity. So every single time this client comes, Maya has to make sure there's nobody in the grooming room, because when this client comes, the dog's all over the place and she's shocking him all over the place because she doesn't like.
Yeah,
she's like,
and
sit, shock, sit. That's abuse
not
of an
training.
e-collar.
Yes, that's an abusive way of using an e-collar. And if it was a prong collar, I'd say the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you can't apply a correction, technically called a punishment, if the dog doesn't understand what they're being punished for, or if they're incapable of changing that behavior in that situation.
Yeah. And
so if they're terrified, we're not going to punish a terrified dog, right? A dog like this dog you're talking about, I don't care how much training she's done, that dog's not trained because there is no relationship there.
And I think that's the interesting thing is Maya has more of a relationship with this dog than the lady does. So every single time they come in, you have to switch to like a leader. So they have to take all their leashes so they don't lose the leashes in the back. So she has to take all the gadgets off of this dog and put him on a slip lead before going over. Maya's like, this dog doesn't pull for me on the slip lead. This dog jumps on the table, jumps in the tub, sits for me. This dog's perfect for me. But as soon as the lady comes in,
and that's
it's so sad.
That's heartbreaking.
And then
really is.
Because they have to like walk through the entire store, she's testing the dog on every single dog that passes by. So like Maya has to like go out and be like, wait, like because there was a dog walking in, and she walked past the dog multiple times. She was scared to death to be in the groomer. Might as well like being tested for this reactive dog, giant dog. And the dog's passing by and she's shocking the dog and then the dog lunging at this dog who's cornered, and Maya has to go out there when it's not her job and take the leash. Yeah, it's terrible.
And
every single time.
Situations like that are why people don't believe in tools.
Yep.
Right. And this is a person who's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, and
right?
it's just
let's not even mention the people who are straight up sadistic.
No,
right?
For real. Yeah.
So that is a situation, and as somebody who looks at that, who is not educated, as far as I'm concerned, on truly how to work with these tools properly, looks at that and says, and it makes a very black and white statement of that's always abuse. Yes, that situation is abuse, but the tool itself is being used wrong. Yep. And I would challenge you on any tool she was using, even if she was just yelling at the dog, is, could be considered abuse, because the dog has no freaking idea what you're talking about.
No, the dog, and she's like, the thing that hurts the most is, I imagine, getting groomed is like the most affirming thing that this dog has in his entire life. Can you imagine? Like, and it's so sad. And the thing that makes me most upset about it is like, I almost rather like a macho man walk in with his pity who's pulling on leash all over the place and being like, sit, rather than this person who invested time and money and effort into this dog and is damaging the relationship they have with the dog.
Has no idea
it's even worse. It's like she's trying her best and she has no idea.
That's an example of somebody who has a little bit of information.
Oh man,
those are the most dangerous people. The people who have a little bit of education or information on a topic, and they don't know what they don't know. There's actually a psychological term for that. Kruger-Dunning, something like that, where it's like people who are the most ignorant are the people who have a little bit of information and don't realize that they only have a little bit of information. Really highly, more intelligent people understand that if I'm just learning about a subject, there's a whole world that I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say that, correct me if I'm wrong, you and me know a lot about dogs, but I will be the first person to go into like a training class or a facility or watch somebody training a dog and be like, that's an interesting way to do it. I never thought about doing it that way.
Right. The curiosity is the key, right? Okay. Why are they doing like that? The dog, in particular, the dog training world is so toxic. This is why we don't have dog training friends, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
It is such a toxic world because, first of all, dogs attract emotionally damaged people. Animals attract emotionally damaged people. We all know this. You go to any shelter and talk to one of the volunteers that work there. They're all nut jobs.
A little nutty. Yep.
Because they've had in some cases, terrible things that have happened in their lives at the hands of other people. And so they figure, animals, in this case, dogs, are safe. But yet they've never worked on their people skills, right?
Yeah.
So they're crazy. I say the only thing crazier than a dog person is a horse person.
And the only thing crazier than a horse person is exotic people.
Yeah, I would say it goes cat crazy, dog crazy, horse crazy, exotic crazy. Yeah, I would say that's the natural evolution of that. Yeah, exotic animal people are the most nuts.
But like the thing that's crazy about that is I like when you meet somebody who's like really educated in dogs and maybe is not 100% there on like the social skills. They have so much information. Like I love picking dog people's like brains because they have so many informations, and then you hear something and you're like, oh, you're a bit nutty, okay. I definitely don't want to be friends with you, but I will still talk to you about this topic because you're really interesting and you have a lot of knowledge, but like I can tell why you're into dogs or you're into monkeys or whatever.
I don't know where I was going. Where did I start on this tangent? We don't know what we don't know, maybe?
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
So I think the dog training world is so toxic, and it's hard to share and get information if you're a professional dog trainer from another professional dog trainer, because people are so defensive and insecure. I have a few of my favorite online trainers who I just think are amazing. But even then, I don't agree with everything they say.
No.
I would never, condone somebody who I thought was doing something wrong as in abusive or neglectful, but that's not what I'm talking about. Wrong. Like, I don't agree with every single philosophy they have, but I can certainly take the nuggets of truth out of that and learn from that. And I'd like to think that we do that for other people as well.
Yep. Yeah. I really try to keep an open mind, and stay curious. I think that is like the biggest key with anything. Like if your profession is, I don't know, carpentry, like keep an open mind.
All right. Let me try to give you an example and see if this resonates with you.
I know what you're going to say.
No, you don't. But this is, I'm not sure if this is specific to me or whether it's something that you find as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. We've been doing a lot of carpentry around here, right? Mm-hmm. And we've been doing a kick-ass job. Mm-hmm. Not to toot our horn, but we really have. I find that when I have to do something new, right? For instance, I just reframed a window downstairs that had been water damaged. And these in the front of the house below ground. So they're in like a window well. So there's 4 of them across the front of the house under the deck. 2 of them are in the boiler room, so those are cement walls. I don't care about them. And then one of them was in the stairwell. That's the one I did. And then one of them is in the puppy room, which I may end up doing. What I have found over the years is the first time I learned a skill, so reframing this window, now I've got like the whole schematic, my favorite word, in my head, right? The boards that I need, what I need to cut them at and all that stuff. I know that when I go to do that second window, I'm going to go in there thinking I know more than I know. And I'm not going to do as good of a job as the first one. Which you would think the second time you do something, you do it a little better because you've learned so much. The learning process is one of my favorite human experiences. Maybe living creature experiences. I love learning something new and watching how quickly I learn something, and especially if it's a repetition thing. Like if you're putting something together and it's got 4 legs, by the time you're on the second leg, you're cooking. The third leg, you're whipping that thing together really quick, and the fourth leg, it's like a heartbeat, right? Mm-hmm. I love the progression of the learning process, which is probably why I like dog training. So I'm kind of hesitating in doing that second window because I feel like I won't do as good of a job because I will think I know more than I know.
And right? I knew you were going to say this, just so you know.
That's crazy that you know that.
I knew you were going to say this.
That is crazy that you know
because
that.
I was thinking, that's why I said carpentry, because I was like, I was like, yeah, it's kind of like how you built that door and immediately tore out the window and started building a window because you got all cocky and was like,
No,
well,
but the window is a completely different
I
experience.
know, but you were like, oh, if I can do a door, I definitely could reframe a window.
Right. Well, how hard can it be?
Exactly. Because you don't have enough information doing carpentry, so now
Right,
you
but
think you can do it.
But that's almost like a conscious thing. That's the like the audacity, right?
Yeah.
It's like I watch these people online redo shit, and I'm like, that idiot can do it. I can certainly do it, right? So the second time I do something, so if I do this, say there were 3 windows to do. The first time, slow, tedious. You're learning everything from scratch, putting it all together. You finish. You did a good job. The second window I do, I'm going to move a little faster, think I know more than I know, make a million freaking mistakes, and it might not actually be as good as that first window. The third window will be better than both 1 and 2.
Because you made the mistakes and now can
Because I'm
learn
like,
from the
I
mistakes.
have to sort of reset and go, I guess I don't know everything. I guess I need to slow down and do it step by step by step, like I did on the first one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a normal. Have you ever noticed that?
I don't. The only situations that I've had that in is with our family, and I just feel like we're cocky. So
We're not cocky, we're audacious.
Well, we always think we can do more than we actually can do, and then when it comes down to it, I'm like, oh, it turns out I can't do that.
No,
Like,
I think you're
learned-
pretty audacious. I do, especially stuff with your car.
Yeah, I do too much stuff, and then I have to. I'm like, Dad, I did all this electrical stuff with my car, and now my headlights aren't turning on.
Well,
And he has to come and help me turn.
Poppy has a very famous Lois story about that. His nephews, so my cousins, Dale and Glenn, were wild kids. They're like just, we're talking. They're actually boomers. They're actually really young boomers. At least Dale is. Glenn might still be considered a Gen X, but like they were completely unsupervised. They were just out in the world doing crazy shit. It kind of runs in that family, by the way. So they bought a car and they rewired it, I think, to put in a radio, because that's what we did in those days. You would get a car and it wouldn't have a radio, or would only have like a dial radio, and you'd pop that radio out and put a new stereo system in. And they wanted to do it themselves, and they rewired the car, and it was literally like you turn the radio on and the lights come on, the windshield light. Like they had to end up junking the car because they brought it to all these mechanics. No one could figure out what they did. It was so bad that they ended up junking the car. They also ran out of gas one day with a car and pulled over the side of the road, and I guess walked to the nearest house where they made a call, and somebody came pick them up. When they went back the next day to pick the car up, it was up on blocks and all 4 wheels were gone. Those 2 boys were nut jobs. They've turned out to be like the most responsible, sedate husbands and fathers. But when they were kids, they were crazy. I don't know. We're way off in the weeds here.
Yeah. We're not even talking about dogs anymore.
I guess the reason I bring that whole window story up is that nothing will humble you like a dog.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think you know what you have, especially if we're doing something in a behavior that we haven't experienced much or maybe at all, if you go into it the second time thinking you know too much from the first experience, that dog's going to humble you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be like, wow, I don't fucking know anything right now. Well, let me backtrack and figure out what I've done wrong here.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Did we end up having, we had Buddy and then we got Lucy, right?
Yes. So Buddy was our first severe resource guarder.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a whole ton of resource guarders since then.
Yeah.
Because for a long time we didn't do resource guarding because we didn't feel like we had the experience and the qualifications. So yes, we took Buddy on as basically the first resource guarding dog. Plus we have all of these requirements around resource guarding and the situation at home and who lives in the house and what kind of resource guarding it is before we'll even consider it.
Yeah.
The size of the dog, etc.
And I actually feel the opposite because we worked with Buddy and I felt like we learned so much from him. And then we ended up getting Lucy, and Oh, I guess maybe it makes sense because we ended up getting Lucy, and then I felt like it was like we had to relearn resource guarding again
Well, I don't know
because it
if
was
we had
such
to
a
relearn it,
different type of resource
but we
guarding.
had to approach it completely differently
Yeah.
because, and this is true of lots of dog behavior, right? It can be the same core behavior, but it has many different causes, right? And so if it has different set of causes, then you have to approach the solution completely differently.
Yeah.
Um, and Lucy did not resource guard to people. That's
No.
key. Buddy was resource guarding to both dogs and people.
And Lucy doesn't parade like Buddy needed to parade.
And Buddy would give you quite a puncture if
he would.
if he had the opportunity. Yeah. Lucy would never do that. And we generally don't take on resource guarders who resource guard people anyway. At least not big ones.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that any really good dog trainer will tell you that very thing, right? Like, I actually don't know anything, or don't know everything. I know lots. I don't know everything. I might think that this is how I'm going to work on this behavior and find very quickly that that's not the right approach. And a good trainer, rather than continuing down that line like a bad trainer will, right? Doubling down, and you see that a lot on Facebook, on social media. Trainers doubling down on one size fits all. A good trainer will step back and then try another avenue and go, I see this isn't working. Let's try something else. You have to be super flexible and willing to see when you're wrong and fix it, which is why I don't do a lot of demonstration videos or almost any on social media, because I think just because this approach worked with this dog
doesn't mean it's
going to work with your dog.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's where I have a hard time watching specific trainers online, because it's almost like it's like one size fits all, and I'm like, you're framing this like this is the way you have to do it for all dogs, and that's just not true. And so like I respect that that's what you're putting out there, but I also feel like there should be a disclaimer like underneath the video being like, this works for this specific dog, doesn't mean it's going to work for all the dog.
Right. And I think that's, and I talk about Denise Venzi ad nauseum, I know, but she's my
muse.
No, she's my idol.
Okay.
I just think she's an amazing trainer, and she doesn't train other people's dogs. I think she did at one point. But she talks so much about nuance and has sort of a long form approach to social media. So she just is working with this one dog right now, this one young border collie, and because we've been exposed to this dog in a step-by-step process, and we're watching his progression, we know his background, and she can sort of talk about why she's using the approach she's using, because we've all seen where he came from and what his idiosyncrasies are. And that's true with literally every single dog. Sometimes we can, we talked about this the other day, sometimes a dog can come in and within 2 seconds, we can assess exactly who this dog is, and in our minds have exactly how we're going to work with this dog. And I said to you, you said, I think it's pretty amazing that I can assess a dog so quickly by just meeting them for under 5 minutes.
I mean, I felt that way about Fergus. I was like, I met Fergus. I was like, oh, this is my type of dog. I can work with him. And exactly what I predicted happened. But there are many times.
There's many times when you think that that's the case, and the dog throws you a curveball, and you're like, oh, okay, I thought it was A, and it turns out it's B.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it turns out to be D, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even see that coming.
I didn't even know D was an option.
Yeah.
But that's why I love it, because it makes you dig deep into your expertise and experience and figure out how to apply that to help this dog.
I felt that way about Willow.
Willow is she was a great dog to work with, but she does have that weird quirk. I just think that's a personality issue. That rescue group should never have placed that dog in that household. This is a pity mix, and they adopted her out to another person with a female pity mix. I would never, as a rescue group,
2 female pitties,
put 2 grown pitties together. it's just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
And they got something going on between them, whereas 80% of the time or 90% of the time they're great together, and then 10% of the time it's a little dicey.
Yep. Yep. And like, I mean, we trained her and I was like, oh, I don't really see what the issue is. And then we brought her home with the sister and we were like, oh, this is what you're talking about. So
Where
it
did
was,
that come
yeah,
from?
I was like, I thought this was A plus B equals C. It turns out that we're doing some.
And the reason I say it's such a specific, and I know you agree with this, such a specific personality conflict, is that when she was with us, she was with so many different dogs. And so that's a good example because, we've done this for a long time. We've done even before we were doing this particular business, we were doing other dog stuff. And, generally if you see a dog who can get along with
A variety of sizes,
personalities,
shapes,
right?
temperaments.
You're like, okay, this is a solid dog. And then she went home and saw her sister and like basically attacked her.
Yeah,
And
that was crazy.
And that was never mentioned to us prior, that there was like beef between those two girls.
Yeah.
Some behavior issues occurring from the relationship, but not actual beef.
Yeah, yeah.
That was really surprising.
And then we ended up taking her and her sister for training for a
that was
period of
even
time.
weirder, right? Right.
Yep.
So the sister then, they came for boarding just a few weeks later, and the sister came too, and we were like, oh, this is a good opportunity for us to see the relationship here, the dynamic, good word, here. And they were perfect.
They were perfect here.
With no issue at all. So,
and then as soon as they went home, all the behaviors came back
so
again.
that's interesting.
It was
So
weird.
not only is it a specific personality thing, but also an environmental thing, and maybe a dynamic between the humans and the dogs.
And this is why whenever we say, like, if you have one dog, it's much harder to go from one dog to two dogs than it is to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And once you have two dogs, you have to keep in mind that you have your first dog's personality, then you have your second dog's personality, and then you have the dynamic between both
Right, so it's
dogs.
like having 3 dogs. It's like going from 1 to 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've always said that. And then I always tease people, like, 1 to 2 is like triple the work.
Mm-hmm.
Good news, going from 2 to 8, not 8 times.
Yeah. Easy for us.
So feel free to get as many dogs after number 2 as you want.
I mean, to be fair, it has not been exactly easy for us.
No,
but,
it isn't.
the basic concept is like...
You also, when you have 8, 9 dogs, you get really good at integrating new dogs into the house. You get really, really good at that.
Yep.
Which is another big part of it. And you're careful about who you bring in because you can't afford to have conflict. So, yeah, dog training will humble you if you're really intent on being good at it. It'll also is forever interesting.
Yep.
I have to be honest, I don't know how you would get any progress at all with this golden retriever doing individual lessons. Could you imagine that?
No.
Like, she really needs a total reset.
Yep. And I think that's the beauty of board and train. I mean, I do think it's also... We definitely wavered on doing this for a long time because, we have mixed feelings about board and train. You have to really have good ethics on your shoulders because it can easily be abused.
Well, just like a prong collar and an e-collar.
Yep.
Board and train, when it's good, it's the best.
It's the best.
When it's bad,
it's bad.
It's horrible.
So, we've talked about this a lot throughout the years. And I think board and train is the best way of training to go because you can take a dog, put them in a dysregulating position, which is away from their home, away from their owner, away from their habits, and then use that dysregulation to implement new behaviors. It just gives you just a small window of being able to teach them and manipulate kind of how they think about things. It's kind of like boot camp, right?
Basically, you're psychologically breaking them down. Not that that's what the environment does that for us, right? It puts them on their back feet, right? Because they're, like you say, strange place, strange people.
And then it gives them enough malleability to be able to reset where they're at. And then once you reset them, then you have a different relationship with them, and then you can add new skills in when those behaviors start arising back when they feel more comfortable.
And that relationship builds abnormally quickly because the dog's feeling so unsure, and you come in and are kind to them and make them feel safe, and they go, oh, I like you.
It's like when you go to camp and the first, even though you only spent 2 weeks at camp, you feel like these are like your lifelong friends because you went through this really hard period of being away from your safe space. It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly the same thing psychologically. But bad board and train, we hear horror stories about it all the time.
Yep.
So I'm grateful that we have clients who trust us to take care of their dogs, and we take that extraordinarily seriously.
Yes.
Which is why when we have no dogs in the kennel for a few days, it's like in between, a bunch of dogs go home from their training and boarding, and we have a few days of an empty training room. It's always such a relief because when we have dogs down there, it's on my mind 24/7, literally. I'm constantly, it's always running in the back of my mind.
No, I
agree.
have
dogs in the house, because it's such a tremendous responsibility to keep these dogs safe and happy.
Yep. And we had that, I think it was like 3 days where we didn't have any dogs, and I always forget because we always have dogs here that aren't ours. Even puppies, like you feel the same way when we start selling the puppies, and even though they were born in our house and these are our dogs and these people have never met them yet, they're still their dogs at that point.
What Sophie's talking about, as soon as we sell a puppy, so say the puppy's 4 weeks old and we have taken a deposit from a person on that puppy, I immediately feel different about that puppy because I feel like it's not my dog anymore. So now I feel like even more because if something happens, there are other people that are going to be impacted. So I feel even more responsible to take care of this puppy than I did before, which is crazy because I'm pretty involved in the puppy rearing.
Yep. So it's crazy when we don't have puppies and when we don't have any training dogs, how much relief I feel.
Yeah.
I always am shocked every single time. And
you know what though?
We just had Gus, but Gus is legally ours.
Right,
so,
right.
I was very much like, he's our dog. So, so whatever.
But since I talked to this potential owner, I was just telling you before we came on air, like, I'm ready to move Gus out. I'm ready for him to go only because I don't want him to have a bad experience with he wouldn't with the Golden Retriever, but with Copper, who can be a little bit brittle with other dogs. I don't want there to be any kind of a negative experience, a scuffle or whatever, because we've gotten this far with Gus without that.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, he needs to now go to his new home. I feel like a different level of responsibility.
No, I agree. I agree.
Because there's other hearts involved, essentially, on this. So even when we have no dogs down there, the little thing is running in the back of my head. I said, sure, because you can't just shut that off. You have to remind yourself, I don't have to go downstairs tonight and watch TV with them. There's nobody down there. And then, of course, just talking as a business person, when there's no dogs down there, the relief of not having any dogs down there gets replaced by my anxiety. We're not making any money.
Yeah, I know.
We need to get dogs in that kennel.
I like when we have a little lull, but then right after we have a bunch of dogs. Yes, I love
the lulls when it's just a few days and a bunch of dogs are coming in right after that. Then I can actually really settle in and enjoy it. Speaking of that, I'm going away in 2 weeks. Yep. Less than 2 weeks. No, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah. And that's partly why I'm like, Gus. Yeah. Because then you'll have 3 dogs down there.
Yeah, Kent comes on Friday, so you'll have 3 training dogs when I'm gone, which is...
It's totally doable compared to the last time you left. So, and you were the only one who left. So,
all right. Well, hopefully we can get another episode recorded next week, and then the week after that I'll be away. Next week I think we might have Melanie come.
Okay, cool.
Did she talk about that today?
No, we were too busy talking about other shit.
I think we have her scheduled. Lucy's mom's going to come and be at the next session, the next episode. That would be fun.
Yeah. Get her perspective.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Lucy on this podcast. So.
We do.
Because she's an interesting case, an interesting dog, and a wonderful owner. And we've, put a lot of time and effort towards her, and her mom has.
And we learned a lot.
Yep. So
from her. All right. Well, maybe we should wind it up before I start yawning again. I need to go get some coffee. All right, now I'm making you yawn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll be back next week. Maybe have a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know, what are we going to call this episode? What did we even talk about?
1 + 1, A + B = C. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd watch an episode called that. I'd be like, well, that sounds boring. I mean, what did we really talk about?
I don't know.
Ethical dog training?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll call it that.
Okay. We just come in here and just rant. So.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on Dog for Thought. Bye. Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.